What is the strangest thing you've seen/experienced in life that you still can't explain? This was about 20 years ago. My teenage sister was talking to my mom and me in the living room one afternoon. She gets a weird look on her face, stops mid-sentence and says, "I have to answer the phone." It wasn't ringing. My family, like everyone, had a landline phone in the mid-90s. It was wall-mounted in the next room over, the kitchen. As she walks toward the kitchen, the phone begins to ring. "Hello? Yes, this is she. She never talked like this." "Yes. Yes. Okay. I will." She hangs up the phone. No goodbye. My mom and I are pretty unnerved at this point. "Who was that?" we ask. "Who was who?" she responds. "On the phone," we say. "When was I on the phone?" she replies, thinking we're full of it. She had, and still has, no recollection of what had just happened. I think about it constantly, 20 years later. Edit, clarity. So I'm walking to work. I'm 21. Old man passes me who I've never seen before. He stops me and asks, "Excuse me, T at 323, do you know where the nearest chemist is?" I'm wondering how the hell he knows my name. I'm not wearing my name badge, I'm on my own, so he can't have heard someone call me it, and I've never seen him before in my life. I think I must have misheard him. I tell him the directions, and then clear as day he says, "Thanks very much for your help, T at 323, have a good day." At this point I have to ask if he knows me from somewhere, but he looks very confused and says he doesn't. So basically random old man knew my name. Met my friend's new girlfriend and we both felt an instant connection, non-romantic. We knew each other, but from where? Started guessing from where we worked, back through older jobs, then neighborhoods we lived, back through school. Finally arrived at the hospital we were born at. We were both born at the same hospital, but that wasn't too odd since there were only 2 local ones. Kept going and were born on the same day. Never found any other way we were connected to explain the feeling we both had. We must have really bonded in that nursery. In my childhood home, I used to hear the sound of touch typing coming from our computer downstairs, when no one was there. Also the sound of the mouse furiously clicking. Thought I was going nuts at first. But then other family members eventually admitted to hearing it too, and we just learned to live with it. Sounds like Dad has been sneaking downstairs at night to browse some unsavory sites. I share a room with my brother, and our bedroom door will randomly open if you don't close it a certain way. We used to get scared as kids when it would randomly open, so now every night we make sure it's closed the right way before we go to bed. One night, my brother and I were watching TV and eventually we just got too tired, so we didn't bother closing the door the proper way. We eventually just knocked out. Then later that night I randomly wake up. It's dark and I see a shadowy figure of a man walk across my room. I try screaming and moving, but I can't. It was the first time I had sleep paralysis. I see the figure walk towards the window near the bed my brother was sleeping in and just stare out the window. Eventually I fall back asleep. The next morning I go to work and tell my coworker about the dream I had last night. She reassures me that I just had sleep paralysis, and it's nothing to worry about because she gets it all the time. I'm like, yeah, I was just really tired last night, so it probably was sleep paralysis. When I get home from work, my sister's home. I tell her, "Yo, I had the craziest dream last night. I think I had sleep paralysis," but before I tell her my dream she said, "You had sleep paralysis? No you didn't, because I think I saw you randomly walk into my room last night and stare out the window." I was tripping out because she told me exactly what I saw before I even told her. I don't think it could have been a stranger or a burglar in the house because, say I have 4 dogs and they would have been barking the entire time. Probably one of the most weirdest things that happened to me. Got up at like 5 a.m., took the dog out and was smoking a cigarette. Suddenly the dog comes running back to the house whining and scared. I looked over at the corner of the house and saw a small, like 3'1"/2" feet tall humanoid with a hunched back, totally bald and moist looking, step out from corner. It turned and looked at me. I just watched it, then it turned around and walked back behind the house. Never saw it again. No idea what it was, but we had a big yard with a 6-foot wood fence and no neighbors, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't a person, and the way the dog reacted was uncharacteristic for him. That's Danny DeVito. He does that sometimes. Spent a week in the Highlands of Scotland with his 3 brothers, their wives and kids. We rented a building at some huge house in the middle of nowhere. If you've been to the Highlands, you'll know what I mean. This building had 3 floors and we were all on the second floor watching TV. My son was about to go for a cigarette downstairs. He opens the door onto the hallway and stops. I can hear someone sweeping downstairs. We all stood and listened. We all heard it and crept downstairs together. No one was down there. The next night I was on the top floor in the bathroom. Someone walked down the corridor and stood outside the bathroom. I could see their shadow under the door. I called out and said I would be a moment. I came out and no one was there, but I could still the shadow under the door just before I opened it. The building also had a pulley system to bring bags up from the bottom floor. It was not used and chained up, but we could hear it moving during the night. One night my son's brother went mental at the kids, 4 boys aged between 8 and 13, because he could hear them running up and down the halls and it was really late. He went into their room and they were all fast asleep. By the end of the week we were all sleeping with the lights on and made sure we were all together in the same room in the evenings before bed. Many moons ago a friend and I were driving on the highway heading to do some shopping and get food. We ended up right behind this pickup truck that had a lot of loose lumber and construction material bouncing around in it. He and I turned and looked at each other and without saying a word he moved 2 lanes over and slowed down to get away from this death trap. About a minute later a large piece of wood comes tumbling out of the back of the truck and onto the highway. At the angle it came out it would have smashed right into our windshield. It bounced over the 2 lanes and we wound up running it over anyway. We pulled over and we're going through the whole holy shit, did we just almost die? Conversation when my phone rings. It's my wife. Are you guys okay? I was taking a nap and had a dream you were in a car accident. Edit, thanks for the gold. My first ever. When I was younger, I was staying at a friend's house. His parents made him take piano lessons, so they had a piano in their living room. From the basement, around midnight, we heard a short little melody, 5 seconds, play on the piano. His parents did not play, and we did not hear anyone walking around upstairs. Scared the shit out of both of us. My only explanation is that his cat jumped on it and coincidentally played something pleasing. Seems hard to believe though. I was sitting in my room listening to music and the volume kept turning down. I turned it back up. The 3rd time it happened I heard a loud sigh and it went down again. A few weeks later my brother threw a cricket bat at me and it made a hole in the wall. Inside the hole was a pair of old lady stockings tied around a clump of hair. We freaked out. We had to put a poster over the hole in the wall so Dad didn't lose his mind, so we didn't tell anyone. Freaky, and my brother was only about 8, so no, he wasn't messing with me. I was haunted by a voodoo grandma who hated Duran Duran. Before my son moved in I lived in the same apartment with just my cat, Minky. At 8 p.m. the doors are locked for safety as this is Section 8 housing and it protects those inside. One night at around 11 p.m. I'm up watching a YouTube video on my laptop on my bed when loud knocking starts up. At first I thought it was from elsewhere or in the video, only to realize it was coming from the door into my apartment. I'm on the 2nd floor and my cat is in the little living room so I can't go out the window. I just sit frozen and listen as it got louder and it sounded like the knob was being jerked around. It's a curved one that you tip to turn. I grabbed for something on my bed just in case, soda bottle, okay. Whoever it was just pounded harder and harder, turning the damned handle frantically until I thought the door would break. It's a heavy door thank God, but it was strained. Then just like that it stopped. I sat for a few moments in silence then got up thinking maybe I imagined it. I looked into the living room. My cat was curled under a chair with his tail puffed out, eyes wide. Nope. Not just me hearing that. I went to the peephole, nothing, so I did something I regret. I opened the door after unlocking it. Nobody. I quickly closed and locked it. Next morning I saw the paint on the door was scratched up and the metal around the handle was scratched. My lock was the first to get an upgrade after that. I've posted this before and people seem to like it, so here we go. The night my grandmother died, I heard voices coming from her room. The only people in the house were me, Grandma and my mother. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning and I could hear my mother snoring in the other room, so I knew she wasn't in there talking to Grandma and I would have recognized her voice if she was. These were voices I did not recognize. Furthermore, one of them was distinctly male. I very clearly heard my grandmother say, "Oh, how have you been?" And the male voice responded too low for me to make out the words, but my grandma sounded so happy to be chatting with him. By this time, I had gotten up and had my hand on the doorknob, about to go into a room and investigate what the hell was up, when I heard a female voice, not my grandma, saying it's time to go now. I heard that, and my whole body just froze. It's hard to explain, but I just had this terrible, frightful sensation that it would be very, Very bad for me to open that door right then. Like walking in on your parents having sex, only with some kind of terrifying ghost thrown in for extra horror. I just backed away very slowly and went into my mom's room instead. I felt so cold all over, like I had been standing outside in a snowstorm, so I got under the covers and just laid there until my mom woke up. Then I told her I thought Grandma was dead. She was. I still miss her. Even though it was terrifying for me, hearing that exchange has made me less scared of dying. Grandma wasn't scared of the voices. She was happy. She wanted to go with them. I hope she comes for me when it's my time. Some interesting additional information I found out after talking it over with my mom. When she found Gran's body, she was on the floor a few feet from her bed, on the left side of the room, away from the door. Gran had been bedridden for 2 months prior to this, and the only thing in that corner of the room was this ancient suitcase that she had carried all her life, from Kansas to California to Oklahoma and back again. It had some sentimental items, mostly pictures and a pair of black satin gloves which I now own. She had also somehow managed to put her shoes on. We can only guess she was getting herself ready to go on with her journey. The day before, the hospice nurse had told my mom it would be coming soon, and this was good because she was in incredible pain from breast cancer and metastatic disease. My mom and I had tearfully sat down with Gran and told her it was okay for her to go, we loved her, etc. I promised her I'd take care of my mom, and she went to sleep with us holding her hands. That was the last conversation we had with her. Camping with a few friends. Friend and I take a few beers down to our fishing poles. We'd been catfishing for hours and kept hearing the bells go off but couldn't land a fish. We each sit down next to our poles and eventually we both lay back to look at the stars. As we're shooting the shit on UFOs and the supernatural, a blinding light appears for a split second right above us, maybe 40 to 50 feet in the air. It was as if a flying, invisible person with an invisible camera had taken a picture of us. My friend and I both freaked out and started yelling to our other friends to ask if they'd seen the light. They had not. We sat there in amazement for a while talking about it. My friend's son then joined us. He checked on his pole and then sat down next to his dad while asking, "What were you guys yelling at? Holy shit." It happened again. The second time I thought the light lasted a second or two longer, but my friend swears it was there for the same length of time. It hadn't moved either. It was still right above us and no higher than we could throw a rock. We never saw it again though. As a child, my imaginary friend Mike. Nobody believes me to this day. He was a kid like me and stayed in the tree outside my window, and would come down to my window and knock. If not, he would just come out of my closet. My mom recently told me that she would freak out when she would listen over the baby monitor. She said she would hear noises that were consistent with someone else being there but would quickly go check and see nothing. She said one time she freaked out so much that she had me sleep with her and dad for 2 months straight. We moved out shortly thereafter. Used to live in Tennessee. Traveled to Georgia one summer weekend to visit family. We went to an outdoor shopping outlet and my mom bought me a balloon, a sparkly blue balloon with a red string. The balloon was tied to my stroller. I undid the cord, and the balloon took to the sky. Fast forward 2 to 3 days later. We returned to our home, 120 miles away, only to find a blue sparkling balloon with a red string in our backyard. I shit you not. I was standing in my yard, tossing around a frisbee, when suddenly it feels like someone just slashed a razor across my forehead. I put my hand up and it comes down bloody. I have no idea what it was, but something sliced open my forehead. I looked around for a bit but I didn't see a damn thing. Eventually gave up and went in to patch it up. I like to think some secret government agency was trying to take me out before I became too powerful, but they ducked up. But it was probably just a leaf or something, knowing my life. When I was little I would play soccer with the neighborhood kids in front of different neighbors' lawns. I was sitting next to the fence just watching when I heard something say my name in strange voice. I completely jumped because no one was next to me or behind me. Never found out who or what said that strange bird-like name calling. Dude, I've had the same thing happen. I always figured it was my mind playing tricks on me, but Jesus, it was creepy. I'm a nurse and I was working in a ward one evening when a fairly odd thing happened. I was standing in the hallway at the sink, washing my hands, when I noticed a little old lady in a green nightie going into the patient room a few doors up. It takes me a second or two, but then I realized two things: that room was empty and the door was closed. The little old lady in the green nightie had drifted through the closed door. The door was still closed when I went down there to check it out, but I opened it anyway and checked the room/bathroom thoroughly. Nope, no little old lady, no one at all. I still don't really believe in ghosts, but I've no idea what else it could have been. One time when I was about 12, I was so angry for some reason that is too silly to remember. I entered my room and slammed the door so hard and went straight to bed. Then I realized the lights are off. I'm not used to be in total darkness, but I'm too angry to go and turn them on. So then something weird happened. I heard 3 claps right next to my bed. I acted like it's nothing and I'm just imagining. A minute later, the same 3 claps came back, so I stood up so quietly, 'cause in my mind, the ghost will only attack if you run. Then I walked slowly to the door, and I tried to open it gently while saying out loud, and I swear that's what I said, "I'm just gonna get me a glass of water," but it ducking wouldn't open. Now I'm having a panic attack. Duck being quiet, duck the water, I just wanna go out. Then it opened and I bolted my way to my parents' room. And I slept right by their bed that night. After that, I always slept with the door open and the hallway lights are on. Thanks for listening to another episode of Reddit X. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any stories. Feel free to share your own stories below in the comments. Have a good day.